Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders is refusing to suit up after what insiders describe as unprecedented disrespect from head coach Kevin Stefanski following Saturday's preseason clash against the Rams. This isn't the usual rookie versus coach tension. It's nothing short of a full-blown organizational meltdown. What unfolded transcends a simple quarterback competition and has morphed into a franchise-defining crisis. For those tracking Cleveland's slide from championship aspirations into chaotic dysfunction, this saga delivers every ingredient of drama. If you thought the Browns had finally exercised their endless quarterback curse, think again. According to multiple sources, the incident detonated Saturday night inside the visitors' locker room at SoFi Stadium. Sanders had just posted a stat sheet masterpiece: 18 completions for 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions against Los Angeles' starting defense. Instead of celebrating that performance, Stefanski allegedly tore into Sanders during his post-game address, nitpicking third-quarter reads, audibles, and pocket management. The words were chosen with surgical precision, delivered with a tone unmistakably confrontational. Veterans exchanged uneasy glances. Assistants stayed silent. Then came the fatal dagger. Stefanski declared Dylan Gabriel would now be receiving expanded first-team reps. Sanders' response stunned the entire room. No yelling. No theatrics. He quietly removed his shoulder pads, gathered his belongings, and walked out. A calculated departure that spoke louder than any tirade could. Stefanski initially brushed it off as rookie frustration. But within hours, the chilling reality crystallized. Sanders wasn't coming back. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. By sunrise, the fifth-round phenom had vanished from the Browns' orbit. Those close to Sanders insist this wasn't a snap reaction. It was the breaking point of systematic disrespect, dating back to draft night. Despite public endorsements from ownership, the coaching staff's resistance was never subtle. Limited first-team reps, a trimmed-down playbook, constant reminders that he had to earn everything, despite outperforming peers. Sanders endured it all silently, channeling his frustration into preparation. But Saturday's very public humiliation was the line he refused to cross. One confidant stated bluntly, he feels blatantly disrespected. Until that changes, he's not stepping back on the field. The fallout is seismic. Practice. Field fallout. Sanders' absence has created a vacuum under center. Gabriel now absorbs first-team snaps by default. Yet the roster knows the circumstances are illegitimate. Offensive linemen whisper doubts about protection calls. Receivers grumble about route adjustments. The training camp rhythm has been shattered, and the dissonance threatens to poison the Browns' entire season preparation. Fan backlash eruption, meanwhile, Cleveland's fan base has ignited like a powder keg. Social media is ablaze. Hashtags like #FreeShedeur and #Start12 exploded within hours. Season ticket holders are openly threatening cancellations. Sports radio lines are flooded with furious callers demanding Stefanski's firing. For a city scarred by decades of quarterback failure, this feels like the ultimate betrayal. As one viral post put it, only the Browns could finally draft their franchise QB and run him out of town before week 1. Organizational civil war. At the executive level, the storm is even more ferocious. Owner Jimmy Haslam, who had previously voiced unwavering support for Sanders, now appears undermined by his own staff. Sources describe Haslam as privately livid, demanding answers as to how Stefanski's criticism escalated unchecked. GM Andrew Berry has been thrust into an impossible position, caught between ownership ordering Sanders' reinstatement and a coaching staff adamantly defending its authority. By Sunday morning, emergency meetings had devolved into raised voices and pointed accusations. The carefully staged off-season unity collapsed in an instant. The Browns now stand at a crossroads. What began as a preseason storyline has erupted into a full-scale franchise crisis, one that threatens not just the quarterback depth chart, but the very credibility of Cleveland's leadership.
This extends far beyond mere quarterback preference. It epitomizes the Cleveland Browns' institutional collapse, unraveling in dramatic fashion. Insiders close to the situation reveal that Stefanski's criticism reflected a broader wave of coaching frustration tied to ownership interference. His post-game remarks were, by many accounts, an overt attempt to reassert authority and reinforce coaching sovereignty against front office intrusion. Instead, he may have ignited a franchise-altering crisis. What makes this moment even more extraordinary is the quiet backing Sanders has earned from veteran teammates. Several seasoned players privately endorse his stance, recognizing the blatant disrespect he endured, even as they maintain public neutrality. Now, let's examine the Saturday performance that sparked such uproar. Sanders displayed extraordinary poise against a bona fide NFL defense. His pocket presence was unwavering under constant duress. His ball placement maximized receiver catch radius. His decision-making reflected processing speed rarely seen in preseason debuts. Most impressive of all was his command, directing protection shifts, diagnosing defensive rotations, and exploiting coverage lapses. Multiple Rams defenders admitted afterward that Sanders' lightning quick release made him nearly impossible to defend. One opposing quarterback confessed post-game, "That kid's for real. He's reading the field like a seasoned vet." And yet, Stefanski spun an entirely different narrative. Sources recount the coach spotlighting isolated plays to paint Sanders as immature and reckless. A 3rd and 7 conversion attempt, forcing an intermediate throw instead of a check down. A red zone scramble, risking needless contact. An audible, shifting a run into a pass against goal line defense. Technically, his critiques weren't inaccurate, but contextually, they were disastrously tone-deaf given Sanders' overall brilliance. Veterans questioned the timing, wondering why such public denouncement was necessary after a victory. One offensive lineman was overheard telling teammates, "Coach crushed that kid's confidence for no reason." Meanwhile, Gabriel's positioning grows increasingly complicated in this storm. The 3rd-round pick maintains professionalism, embracing the added reps while steering clear of inflammatory comments. Yet everyone acknowledges his rise stems from Sanders' absence rather than his own dominance. His preseason performance has been respectable. Solid completion percentage, clean turnover avoidance, emerging leadership. But the explosive playmaking, the game-altering spark, the franchise-defining potential, those remain Sanders' exclusive domain. Gabriel knows this truth, leaving him awkwardly benefiting from, yet unsettled by, the situation. Beyond the immediate quarterback saga, the deeper rot of organizational culture becomes impossible to ignore. The Browns were supposed to have evolved, from league laughingstock to contender through a carefully engineered culture. Stefanski preached accountability, consistency, and collaboration. Yet this very episode exposes glaring contradictions. Ownership dictates, coaches resist, players fracture, media amplifies. The carefully cultivated culture collapses under scrutiny. Reports from inside the facility describe a toxic environment, with factions splintering between Sanders loyalists and Stefanski defenders. And don't expect a simple resolution. Sanders' camp has reportedly laid down strict conditions for any potential return: a public apology from Stefanski, a guaranteed starting role, and greater input in offensive schematics. Reasonable under the circumstances, perhaps, but these demands strike at the heart of coaching authority. If Stefanski concedes, he sets a dangerous precedent where players dictate organizational direction. If he refuses, the Browns risk alienating generational talent and igniting fan-base rebellion. The financial stakes only heighten the dilemma. Sanders' fifth-round rookie contract gives Cleveland 4 years of elite upside at bargain cost. To lose him now would be to surrender a priceless asset for nothing. Trade whispers already circle the league, with rivals eager to exploit Cleveland's weakened negotiating leverage. Meanwhile, Watson's albatross contract continues to strangle the salary cap, suffocating roster flexibility. The Browns risk squandering a cost-controlled quarterback solution through sheer organizational malpractice. Around the NFL, executives watch in disbelief as Cleveland self-destructs. This debacle could forever reshape how franchises handle rookie quarterbacks. Teams are now re-evaluating developmental structures, communication methods, and ownership boundaries. Sanders is establishing a new precedent. Talented prospects will no longer tolerate disrespect simply because of draft slot. His refusal to accept substandard treatment resonates powerfully with a younger generation of players who value respect over outdated hierarchies. It is nothing short of a revolution in the making. Veteran leaders observe the turmoil, fully aware of its broader ramifications. Myles Garrett reportedly addressed the team on Sunday, urging unity amid the chaos. His words were carefully measured, neutral in tone, sidestepping explicit allegiance. Yet he acknowledged the weight of the tension pressing on the locker room. Other captains attempted similar damage control, striving to stabilize without choosing sides. Still, behind closed doors, genuine concern surfaced. One defensive starter confessed to reporters, "We finally have real talent at quarterback. Both guys, actually, and we're blowing it all up before the games even count." Meanwhile, social media has morphed into a battlefield. Former players publicly blast Stefanski's handling of the situation. Media personalities argue over the appropriateness of Sanders' response, and the discourse often descends into toxicity. Racial undertones creep into debates of entitlement versus accountability. Then, late Sunday, Coach Prime himself dropped a cryptic message. Real ones recognize real disrespect. Stand tall. The implication was unmistakable. A veiled endorsement of his son's stance while avoiding outright confrontation. By Monday morning, the Browns facility resembled a demilitarized zone. Security tightened, media credentials restricted. Players ushered through alternate entrances to dodge cameras. Sanders remained absent. Gabriel took the first team reps as reporters chronicled every throw. Stefanski's press conference was abruptly postponed. GM Andrew Berry stayed out of sight, and Haslam's private jet was spotted departing Berea en route to Colorado, sparking speculation of direct negotiations with the Sanders family. Inside the meeting rooms, coaches strained, to maintain normalcy while grappling with the obvious void. The offensive coordinator struggled to design schemes without knowing his starting quarterback. Position coaches wrestled with awkward dynamics as Gabriel, fully aware his rise was circumstantial, filled the role. Defensive coaches seethed privately, frustrated that offensive dysfunction overshadowed preparation for a unit with championship potential. Even the special teams coordinator cracked a dark joke about emergency quarterback contingencies. Nobody laughed. The player's perspective reveals a fascinating divide. Younger teammates overwhelmingly side with Sanders, resonating with a generational shift that prizes respect over blind submission. Veterans are split, some defending process and hierarchy, others acknowledging raw talent. Among offensive skill players, frustration is especially sharp. They know Sanders elevates their production. One receiver admitted anonymously, "Shedeur makes throws Dylan can't." That's not disrespect, it's reality. Another countered, "Coach knows what he's doing. Shedeur needs to fall in line." External pressure escalates by the hour. Local businesses selling Sanders-themed merchandise report surging sales. Billboard companies receive requests for free Start Shedeur campaigns. Sports bars announce boycotts if Sanders isn't named Yo QB1. Season ticket holders rally on social media, threatening mass cancellations. The financial stakes crystallize. Corporate sponsors now privately express concern about associating their brands with such dysfunction. Behind the scenes, negotiations continue through intermediaries. Sanders' camp holds firm. Public respect must be demonstrated before any return is even considered. Stefanski's allies argue that conceding authority would fatally undermine coaching legitimacy. Ownership demands swift resolution that preserves both quarterback and coach. GM Berry pushes for pragmatic compromise, recognizing that prolonging the standoff leaves no winners, only casualties. The historical backdrop makes this crisis even more damning. Cleveland's quarterback graveyard is infamous, littered with cautionary tales. From Couch to Manziel, from Quinn to Kaiser. Time and again, the franchise has sabotaged quarterback development. Now, with legitimate generational talent in-house, they risk repeating history through a different mechanism. This time, it's not a shortage of talent, it's organizational dysfunction squandering it. The cycle persists despite changes in personnel, suggesting deeper institutional rot, demanding systemic overhaul. The ripple effects extend beyond Cleveland. Across the league, rival front offices watch with predatory interest, sketching contingency plans. Should Sanders become available? Via trade or outright release, the entire quarterback landscape could shift overnight. If Sanders were released, multiple franchises possess both draft capital and roster structures to absorb him seamlessly. The Cowboys, Raiders, Panthers, and Giants are all reportedly monitoring with active interest. Each of these organizations recognizes that Sanders' talent vastly eclipses the profile of a typical fifth-round selection. His sudden availability would ignite an all-out bidding war. Yet Cleveland, crippled by its own leverage collapse, would reap only minimal return. Time is closing in. Training camp winds to its conclusion. The preseason finale is at hand. The regular season looms. Without swift resolution, the Browns will march into meaningful competition with a fractured quarterback room, a divided locker room, a seething fan base, and a national spotlight of ridicule. Opposing defensive coordinators are salivating, eager to exploit the chaos for competitive gain. Division rivals in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati could not have scripted a more advantageous implosion for their own championship pursuits. The critical question remains: can this relationship be salvaged? Sources suggest the window is rapidly closing. With each passing day, positions calcify. Sanders' absence becomes routine. Gabriel finds rhythm with the first-team offense. The trajectory hardens toward permanent separation. One league executive summarized the stakes bluntly. If the Browns lose Shedeur Sanders right now, they don't just lose a quarterback. They lose the fans. That statement cuts to the heart of the matter. This is no longer a debate about quarterback evaluation. It is about franchise identity itself. Cleveland has spent decades haunted by its reputation as football's graveyard, where promising careers go to die. In recent years, they have attempted a cultural metamorphosis built on stability, competence, and collaboration. But this ordeal threatens to obliterate that fragile progress overnight. Losing Sanders would not merely represent the departure of talent, it would mark cultural regression, dragging the franchise back into the dysfunction it swore it had buried. For Stefanski, the moment is career-defining. He stands at a crossroads. Cling to authority at the cost of alienating generational talent and the fan base, or acknowledge miscalculation, display humility, and salvage organizational stability. Neither path is appealing, yet delay corrodes everything further. His legacy may hinge entirely on this choice. Will he be remembered as the coach who stabilized Cleveland, or as another failed steward who added another headstone to the Browns' infamous quarterback graveyard? History waits for his decision. For Sanders, the moment transcends contract dispute or playing time quarrel. It is precedent-setting. Accept disrespect now and normalize it for the rest of his career. Stand firm today and command permanent respect. Going forward, his decision will shape not only his Cleveland tenure, but the entire arc of his professional journey. The pressure is enormous, yet he remains strikingly composed. Sources describe him training privately, maintaining peak condition, and preparing for every eventual outcome. That mental resilience is what separates franchise cornerstones from roster fillers. As Monday afternoon bleeds into evening, the Browns' facility remains tense. Meetings drag on. Phones buzz endlessly. Media speculation roars louder. Fans refresh their feeds in desperation for clarity. The organization appears paralyzed, incapable of resolution. This is not how championship foundations are laid. It is how promising seasons collapse before they ever begin. The truth is unavoidable. Professional football demands more than raw talent. It demands alignment, communication, and mutual respect across every tier of an organization. Cleveland currently demonstrates none of these qualities. Instead, the Browns are putting on a masterclass in dysfunction, reaffirming why certain franchises remain eternally trapped in mediocrity despite ample resources, loyal fans, and a large market. The announcement ripped through Cleveland like a surge of electricity. Shedeur Sanders, rookie, 5th round selection, and the most polarizing figure in Browns camp, wasn't merely dressing for his first preseason showdown. He was starting ahead of Dylan Gabriel. The shockwaves hit the NFL discourse before the ink had even dried on the press release. For weeks, the quarterback duel had been framed as a dead heat. Gabriel's experience and steadiness pitted against Sanders' explosiveness and upside. Common logic said the veteran would take the ceremonial first snaps while the rookie eased his way in. But when Cleveland revealed their plan, it was far more than a simple depth chart adjustment. It was a declaration, and not everyone took it gracefully. Gabriel loyalists, already uneasy over Sanders' meteoric rise, flooded social media with indignant calls to respect the process and warnings about rushing a rookie. The backlash was loud, defensive, and laced with panic. Because here's the reality: when a rookie gets tapped to start the preseason opener, it's more than a coaching decision. It's a signal that the balance of power inside the Browns building is shifting. This wasn't some out-of-the-blue stunt. Sanders had been stacking impressive practices, earning praise from veterans, and steadily winning over the locker room. He hadn't had extensive time with the first-team offense, but when those reps came, the proof was undeniable.